Okay, we'll get going. We'll have a prayer chat. Yeah.
No, I can do that. Yeah. But I think she's coming in. All right, yes. Yeah, you're right.
Then when I heard the big spirit neither the Ganukti Solis can even reach the last year we have. Muscora can be Ganoha, the Corda, Shaw, the Queen of the Car up that was the core conservative the guy in here then. I was going to shade on the Congo in this office convert in our Jera father. Peter who he always has.
No, they can spell it neat. Well, welcome members to our to my first meeting in charge, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome our new MD, Martin Layden, and our new Director of Services, Jim, to our first meeting as well. And I'd also like to welcome the two girls in the chamber from Kimpton. They're here on placement with Sligo County Council. So we'll get straight down to business. The number one on the agenda to confirm the minutes of the Municipal District of Tubbercurry, Ballymote. Second, Joe Queen. Number two, to confirm the minutes of the annual general meeting of the Municipal District of Tubbercurry, Ballymote. Mullaney and Darren Mundy. Matters arising. Councillor Mullaney.
On last meeting, I'm just looking at the minutes here, we had the issue of the pole in Ballymote, and we have it still hasn't been moved. We got costings on it since. I think there's 500 for the ESB, or 5,000 for the ESB, and 2,000 for accommodation works. And I'm just wondering, does Emer have any progress report on it?
Yes, Councillor Mullaney, Coherlock, Councillor Mullaney. The engineer is looking at it and is doing his best to make it work, to make it happen. So that's as much as I can say. He is certainly advancing it.
Are we waiting on the ESB to do their end of the work now?
No, I don't. The ESB aren't a blockage there, but my understanding is that there's just a little bit of it's just not maybe black and white, but the engineer is certainly working to make it happen.
Okay, thanks, Emer.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. And just like to welcome Emer to the meeting. I neglected to say so at the start. Number 4, Councillor Mullaney. Who's in second and Darren? It is me.
This is a road that leads off the N4 on the Boyle side of Castle Baldwin. There's 9 families living on it, and arising out of the new N4 now, traffic is flowing fast. It's just past the upgraded section, and traffic is flowing fast onto that junction, and the residents are looking for a right turning lane. Is there a report?
Is there a report on that?
Yes, we have a report, Coherlock. We will discuss this request with the TII, but I suppose just to note that the road is a good kilometre from the N4, from which there is a roundabout. There's a roundabout at the end of the new scheme, and then this right turn is a further kilometre away. So it's unlikely that there has been any change as a result of the new scheme. However, we will discuss with the TII safety section your request.
Yeah, no, but I think it's important to make the point that traffic is flowing as it can do on the new N4 fast. And people are in that frame of mind, and they continue on to the section then that's between Castle Baldwin and Ballymote. And then there's this right turning road which is dangerous now. And I certainly the NRA owns or TII owns ground on the left-hand side. So the road can be slightly widened there, and there can be a right turning lane put in at a minimum cost.
Yeah, as I said, the TII will survey it and make that determination.
Yeah, I'd just like
Rebecca.
to support Councillor Malani on it because I know in the past something like this has been cause of a lot of accidents. So thank you.
Okay. Number 5, Councillor Queenan.
So, well, be blunt, honest about it. The reason I put this motion down, and I consulted with the Chuka chairman and Mr. Chinny before I put it down, arising from the issue earlier in the year regards naming a bridge in Scone, which created difficulty in our village. It split our community probably 50-50, maybe, or 40-60 anyway. And we here as a council, elected members were caught because they were asked to vote on maybe an issue they didn't really or fully aware of. And so I felt that these kind of issues, we were the first community in recent times where there wasn't unanimous agreement on naming a bridge or naming a road after somebody. And I felt that these kind of cases should be brought back to the area meetings of whatever area it is. And Mr. Tinney, who is great knowledge in this whole area, I asked him to, with permission of the chair and the CEO, that he come in and give us guidelines on how we could deal with this kind of an issue in the future. So that's all. That's the background to my motion.
Thanks, Councillor Queenan.
Yeah.
Dawn?
Cahill, yeah. Yes, in responding to this, I can only respond, as I say, under the Decade of Centenary, and we had a lot of preparation for this Decade of Centenary insofar as we had a reconciliation group that worked together as well, and how best to approach this very difficult period of Irish history. It was always going to be difficult. So in responding to Councillor Queenan's motion regarding possible advice as to how to approach the drawing up of a strategy to honour a person or persons who have made a significant contribution in their area, my response will be solely from that perspective, Decade of Centenaries, and applying the government guidelines. The Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaelic Sport and Media, aware of the need to issue possible guidelines on commemorating the centenaries of the War of Independence and the Civil War, convened the expert group to draft guidelines which were then issued to each local authority, and they're entitled Appendix A, Local Legacies 1921 to 2021. The community strand of the 2021 Decade of Centenaries programme was issued in December 2020. Appendix A contains advice, direction, suggestions and rules for local authorities to follow in commemorating the 1921-2021 Centenary Community Strand. Currently in the Decade of Centenaries 2021 programme, Sligo County Council Decade Centenary Steering Group, consisting of elected members, are utilising Section F of these guidelines to commemorate the Sligonians who paid the ultimate price in the War of Independence. It is intended in the coming weeks to plant a commemorative tree in their honour in the community from which they came. So far, there are 4 names there. Whilst the guidelines do allow for gardens or commemorative groves to be erected as memorials to the guidelines also advise that a sustainability plan for this approach is examined and put in place to ensure proper maintenance in subsequent years. No point in putting up gardens if they're not maintained, and that is one of the critical areas. So there, Councillor Cahirlock, is some of the background and maybe some guidelines there which have been established by the expert group, which is cross-political and utilising historians as well, in best advised how to approach commemorating this very difficult centenary that we're going through at the moment.
Thanks, Mr. Tierney. Do you want to come back in on that, Joe, again?
Can we have a report?
Pan your mic.
That report from Mr. Tinney, can we get that report, number 1? And number 2, when he's talking about, you name 4, can you name the 4 people in Sligo he's referring to?
Henry Kelly, Thomas McDonough, Thomas Howley and Martin Savage so far.
Okay, so And did that committee propose to honour them 4 individuals?
Yes.
And can I ask in relation to, obviously, Thomas Howley was born in a school in my town. How do you propose to commemorate Thomas Howley, the late Thomas Howley?
Well, one of the mechanisms we're allowed to utilise is the planting of trees, and that's the path we're choosing, and in consultation with Parks, who will acquire the trees and plant them now in the autumn in October.
Okay, so it's imminent. It's in these 4 people has been done this October.
Yeah. Yes. Next year will be one of the more difficult years. It's the Civil War, so we're trying to, with COVID-19 has restricted our activities this year, along with a lot of other areas. So we're trying to, as one of the deliverables, get that sorted this year in October. And Parks Reliable tell me it's the best time to plant a tree in October.
And where will the Thomas Howley tree be planted?
Sometime in October, Councillor. Yeah.
What location?
Well, we haven't identified an actual location yet. It's the actual community from whence they came. Obviously, ideally, it would be Enniscrone in that case.
Yeah, well, I would welcome that, and I would ask that it would be to work with all the people around the Thomas Howley committee, both the Community Council and the Thomas Howley committee, and to agree on a location in the village where that tree should be planted. Okay. That's my view. Maybe other elected members have different views on it.
Councillor.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Mr. Tinney for his report and welcome his discretion on it and welcome his judgment on it, and I hope it's acceptable to the people that want to honour everybody concerned, not only Howley. But I think that if I'm reading this right, Councillor Queenan, I think what we need to do is streamline our decision making in relation to the naming of bridges and buildings, public buildings in municipal districts. I think we need to change the format that the motion would come from the municipal district to the place names committee and then back to the municipal district and then on to the full council to be agreed. I think we need a stricter. I think 2 of the most controversial decisions that this council made in recent times was that naming of the bridge in Ballymote in the Scrone. It split the community and it split the council, and personally I was in favour of it, but I didn't see sufficient support locally for it. And the other major decision that Sligo Municipal District was the gaming licence modification to the rules. Now, you know, that was carried on the strength of the chairman of the municipal. It was pure split down the middle again, and the people that put the pressure on both me and you and rural councillors for not backing the naming of the bridge called for a plebiscite in the Scrone. And like, we didn't call for a plebiscite in Sligo town to see what the people in favour of changing the gaming acts in Sligo town. And I think that the council needs to change the procedure. That if that came through this group here first, it could be a complete different process, a complete different decision, and there might be no controversy. So I'd ask that our procedures committee would look at this issue and to suggest that bridges that has to be named or public buildings has to be named must come from the municipal district to the place tenures committee, back to municipal, and then on to the main council to be adopted. I think if we done that, it would stop any further controversy like this arising. Thanks, Ciara.
Councillor Taylor.
I just want to compliment Donal on the work he has done along the committee in this area over a very difficult year. I know, Donal, I had a lot of consultation with you over different things during the year, and the work that you are doing certainly hasn't gone unnoticed, and I just want to thank you for that. I I hear what Councillor Clark and Councillor Queen have had to say, and I agree with Councillor Clark. I think that you know, a lot of decisions can firstly be made at municipal district level, and I think that we can move them forward from there. But I think if there's general agreement with the councillors in that area who know what the people of that area want, then I think that's the starting point. And after that, I think we can move it forward from there. And I do agree that the debate surrounding the bridge and the Ballywadi Bridge was a very difficult one, certainly for the local councillors, Councillor Queen in there and Councillor Clark, and we were all lobbied about it. Councillor Mulvey, you're not far away from it yourself, and you were chair at the time, and I think a lot of that could have been, we could have maybe, if there was a different procedure in place, we mightn't have had to go through the debate that we had to go through. But I agree with you, Councillor Clark. I think that's a good starting point for everybody.
Councillor Mulvey.
Thanks, Cahir. Yeah, I suppose a certain amount of what I would say would be in agreement with what Councillor Taylor has said. And, you know, as someone that was on the Place Names Committee, I certainly at all times have said that I believe the council were in favour, and the general consensus I got of all the councillors were they were in favour of honouring volunteer howling. But I think, as Councillor Clark said, the format may be that it takes that an issue is brought straight to the Place Names Committee without maybe the input of the councillor on the ground. And like this issue, everybody wanted to support honouring volunteer howling, certainly as I did when as chair, and I still would certainly like to ensure that his name is honoured, and we all want to honour our people that went before us and fought for the freedom of our country, you know. But I think Councillor Queenan, being the local councillor on the ground, I suppose was getting the feeling that there was division in the community. And for the people that were on the committee, it was that bit harder maybe for us that this wasn't just a clear-cut case of naming something without consultation. And I certainly was, when I was in the chair, that was the first thing I called for, that there would be consultation between the two groups. Now, unfortunately, there didn't seem to be progress on the consultation. And I think, unfortunately, maybe if all that, as Councillor Taylor had said, had been done prior to it coming to the main council meeting, it may have aired and ironed out a lot of the issues, because, you know, when I think the council are naming something in any part of the county, I think they have to be sensitive to the community. And if you have one half of the community happy and another half of the community not, it puts the councillors in a very awkward position. And I think that's why we need to have as much consultation and as much discussion on an issue. And again, concur with what people have said. I want to thank Donald Tenney and his staff there for all the work they've done on this. And certainly, you know, I would be all in favour of honouring volunteer howling in a way that is sensitive to everybody. And I think that's, you know, what hopefully we will be able to do. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Mulvey. Sorry, Councillor Baker.
I think the biggest difficulty when you go back to that era is because I know on a personal level we were going to honour someone in our own area and went to the family and said it was a good idea and that. And then the son of the man came back to me later and he said, I think you're better to leave it, because he said you're going to open a lot of hurt, because he said there was people killed on both divides. And I think anything that we're doing like that, I think it's better bring it into our own area first, and at least we'll get the feeling on the ground. People will have homework done with whatever they're coming. And I think there's something coming up in myself and Councillor Mullaney's area. It isn't to do with it, be more in the educational thing. And I think we might maybe bring that in and go through the process and see what happens maybe. And it might be maybe a little bit more simpler, because you're always going to offend no matter what you've done. But whatever it is about going back to these times, there was a lot of hurt and it's still festering with a lot of people. I know I've been working on the ground on a personal level and was said to me years ago, so I'd just maybe leave it at that. Thank you.
So I agree with Councillor Carr. We had did this at local level on day one after the motion was beaten about IT. And like no doubt, I know that took place, intention took place, and it could not take place. So do we take it on? How do we know that we're going to pass it on to our future? Because it's supposed to be another village soon. So when this goes into the council chamber, the elected member, which they're entitled, any elected member is entitled to put down a motion, any part of the county. What do we do then? Do we defer it back? Will we saying that should be deferred back to the area? We live no problem in our area, but of course, it's other areas. It's not council policy now, so that's the only issue.
Yep, Mayor. Yep. MD.
Listen, I think there's this issue. I think there's a number of issues that need to be addressed around the plenary meeting, the MD meetings, and it's only the elected members really who can make decisions around this situation. So, I actually agree with Councillor Clark. I think we need to convene the Procedures Committee, and I think that's the place to have all this sort of stuff discussed, because I've looked at it, it's quite loose at the moment, and I think we need to tighten up. What do we want discussed in an MD meeting? What do we want discussed in a plenary meeting? Because I'm meeting a number of councillors now as I'm out and about, and one of the things they want to do, what COVID has shown to them, they want to do their business in an efficient and a smart manner. So all these type of issues need to be brought into that Procedures Committee, and we need to formalise it and structuralise it so then it can come back to the full council meeting and there's agreement as to what goes into that procedures, and then we deal with these issues correctly.
Thanks very much.
You're going to convene a procedures meeting soon or sometime in the future.
Yeah, Kevin Colreevy and Jim are gonna convene the meeting, but to be clear on what's going to happen, it's the members will be making decisions as to what happens in their meetings. It'll be for yourselves to make those decisions as to what meeting covers what issues, so that then you've got agreement as to what you're doing.
Okay.
So, just can I ask a question and to see, so what will happen is recommendations will come back to council meetings. So the full council can either agree or modify what comes back. Yeah, fine, that's fine. Fine.
Take it so that our Cathaoirleach will be on that procedures committee and will express our views at that, and then the recommendations will come back to the full council.
Everybody happy with that? No? Okay. Yeah. Number 6, Councillor Queenan again. Second, Councillor.
Cathaoirleach, yes. Sligo County Council wrote to Irish Water following this motion, and I'll read out the response from Irish Water. So thank you for your email, etc. The Enniscrone wastewater treatment plant is operated by a third party, which is EPS, on behalf of Irish Water. The capacity of the plant is 5,000 population equivalent in summer and 1,500 population equivalent in winter. The 2020 reported peak load was calculated at 3,360 population equivalent. The plant was fully compliant with all parameters set out in the EPA discharge licence, bar 1, which was total oxidised nitrogen, in the 2020 reporting year. It is noted in this report that there is no negative impact on water quality from the Enniscrone wastewater treatment plant discharge. To date, in 2021, the plant is operating satisfactorily and is again compliant with all EPA licence requirements, bar a small number of elevated ammonia and total oxidised nitrogen samples. Furthermore, the most recent EPA bathing water profile for Enniscrone bathing waters notes there is no evidence to suggest that this plant is impacting on bathing water quality. During the summer bathing season, the wastewater treatment plant and associated pumping stations are inspected and operated on a daily basis to account for the increase in the tourist trade. I trust you find this helpful.
Ciara, thanks very much, Emer, with that report. I'm delighted that the plant is up to standard and has no negative impact on our beach and our bathing water. But from a lay person's point of view, and I might represent the people who live locally to the plant, I know Inniscrone was at full capacity in mid-July to mid-August this year, a record crowds, and there was a lot of smell coming from the plant at times during the day, especially it all depended on where the wind was blowing, and people in that area had to keep their windows and doors closed. That's a fact I know. And if you're walking by the plant, because the coastal walk is close to it, and I walk that on a regular basis, and it was definitely like a plant under pressure, maybe is the right word, at periods during the summer. I would say, again, from a layman's point of view, that she was very close to capacity in the month of July this year. You were talking about 5,000. It could well have hit the 5,000. So I would just say we were delighted to get at the time. It's plan, design and built and operated by EPS. And I have no great criticism of it, but if Inniscrone continues to expand and develop, it's an area we will have to look at the upgrade of the plant or keep a close eye on it. So thank you for the report.
Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I welcome the report, and it's a very serious issue, and I have no doubt that there was a queer smell of Queen's bank account for them 2 months too.
Councillor Baker?
It's to do with capacity, but we had major problems in our own village in the dry spell, and an awful odour, and we're on the AstroTurf the other night and you could get it as well. So I don't know whether it's capacity or whether there's something that can be to alleviate in the long term. So, but I definitely in the summer, Councillor Mullaney would have had it as well, but it's best.
No, I just want to support Councillor Baker on the problems with the smell from the Riverstone plant. I got a number of calls on it, particularly back in the real hot spell that was in July and for a few weeks after. So there is an issue to be addressed there as well.
I think it's to be sorry, Chair, to be fair, it's everywhere in good weather. You know, it's the same in Gertrude in good weather, in the good weather as well, as you say, Joe. The wind will be blowing in your direction, you'll smell it.
All right, Chairman, just reminds me that Ms. Kilcannon said that she'd be meeting Irish Water in relation to East last Friday, I think it was, and was there any progress on that?
Yes, we did meet Irish Water, and they're going to advance the storm water tank over they have a design workshop for it within the next few weeks. So yes, they have committed to advancing the stormwater tank at Eastkey.
Thank you.
That's good news. Everybody okay with that? Number 7, Councillor Mullaney.
Is there a report on that?
Coherlock, there are strict requirements to be complied with before carrying out work at burial grounds. The area engineer will discuss this with our heritage officer and come back to yourself, Councillor Mullaney, with the procedure details shortly.
That's fine. The grass hasn't been cut in that cemetery for 21 years. There was an attempt made to do it about 10 years ago. Councillor Baker probably has had calls on this as well. And somebody approached the people that was cutting it and told them they shouldn't be in there and that there could be damage in monuments. So it's in a state now that people are finding it hard to find their own graves, and there's along with grass to scrub in it. So I welcome the reply, and I look forward to hearing from Mr. Sloan. Thanks.
Ciara, just in support of Councillor Mullany on that, I also had someone mentioned it to me as well, and I recollect that. I know this was something we had difficulty, I know, at a cemetery in Killarney, and prior to that, I know, and Councillor Clark, there was an issue with the old cemetery in Ballymote that, you know, people at the best will in the world, you know, are trying to go in and maintain them, but unfortunately, you know, I suppose the regulations now, they're fearful of, you know, some of the headstones weren't always placed upright, some of them were placed flat, and I know maybe during the 80s there was a lot of false groups went in and done great work on cemeteries, but then the kind of for years they were let grow wild, and I know certainly it took a bit of time to get it sorted out with the old cemetery in Killordan, but they were able to get an agreement, I think, with the heritage officer and leader that they could go in under I suppose guidance as to what could be done and what can't be done, you know, to get it maintained. But it is important for people that come back, you know, after a long time away, or, you know, that they're able to get into firstly a cemetery and then see where monuments are, and that where loved ones generations back are interred. I think it's important that they can do that.
Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Number 8, Councillor Clark.
There's a particular dangerous rocky bog rampart part of road between the village of Killarney and, I suppose you could call it the town of Killarney, and N17. And it's a road that's used a lot from farmers going to Ballymote Mart from West Sligo. And it's a particular dangerous road, and it's narrow, and it's bog into the side, and it really needs to be done now. It's a very dangerous part of the road, and I know that people that would use that road would be familiar with it.
Councillor Mulvey.
Yeah, thanks, Ciara. And it's support of Councillor Clark. I suppose I'd use this road very regular, and I'd agree with what Councillor Clark has said. There is a section of it that is subsiding, you know, and if there's any two vehicles, even if a car meets another car, people have to pull in or stop. And especially, I think Councillor Clark said, if lorries appear on it, like, it's very dangerous. If a lorry pulls in, there is a danger of them going down, because there are drops each side of the road. So it does need an investigation and building up if at all possible, because it is the main link road off the N17 down into Killarney, you know, and all the traffic will say from Ballymote, to be a lot of traffic using that for the Mart, you know, even going down to West Sligo would use that road. So there is a lot of commercial and farm vehicles using it, so I'd support the motion.
And just Emer in first, and then, is that all right, Councillor Taylor?
This section of road will be considered for inclusion in the draft 2022 Restoration Improvement Programme.
No, Councillor.
No, I just wanted to support the motion. Just look at it. I know the road as well, and it does need upgrading.
Here, I welcome the report, and I thank Emer for that, and all our team. They do a fantastic job on the roads in Sligo. Any bit that's done is done for life, and they're a credit to us. Thanks.
Everybody okay? Number 9, that's myself.
Second.
I think we're all fairly well aware of these pedestrian crossings. I know Councillor Taylor had a motion in sometime last year on them as well, but I witnessed 2 or 3 very close calls on the one, particularly outside the super value. I don't know what the answer is to it, but maybe more signage or more warning to motorists that they actually exist. I don't think that the traffic has to stop for them, does it? No, I'll leave it.
Okay, Ciara, just the road markings at this particular crossing is included is scheduled to be refreshed in October this year, and we will discuss the upgrading of signage with TII, but at least the road markings should make a difference at that location.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, could I just ask Emer? I know there's 2. There's one like Martin has said there down behind the shop services and super value. And there's one then up kind of the top of the town on Church Street, just across from where Doohan's was. What's the name of it now?
Yes.
Still Doohan's. That's
Connolly Park.
that's a particularly dangerous one, and I know the volume of traffic I suppose that we'll have in the future now that the with more houses in Connolly Park, there will be an awful lot more of that. But the cars that come up the town, we'll say, going towards Sligo and come around that bend, it's absolutely shocking. And I've said this before, and I've said it on a number of occasions. You know, there needs to be some kind of a ramp there or something to slow traffic down. And the residents there in Church Street along the main road, like they're coming out of their driveways there all the time. Like there's near ones at all times. Martin, you know this and I know this too. Like it's absolutely shocking, and nothing has been done with it. We're told that it's up to the TII, because it's a national route to do something with it, and nothing has happened, and there is a serious accident coming. And I know there's a serious accident coming, but if we could just maybe, I know that the road markings, as you say, they're going to be upgraded, but maybe in particular that crossing at the top of the town there, just on Church Street, if something further could be looked at, to try and alleviate the problem that's there, because there's a bad bend coming up around to it, and the cars are flying up the back road, and they're on it before they realise they are. So look, it's just something needs to be done with it. So if they are talking about upgrading the markings on them, maybe they could go a bit further with that one up the top of the town.
Yeah, we'll certainly bring it to TII and do our best.
Yeah, thanks very much, Emer, for the report. I wonder, would it be possible to put maybe slow or, write it on the road when the markings would be being done? Because maybe it's an educational thing with people. People think they can walk straight out on that it's a pedestrian crossing, and when they just come to it, they just walk straight across. I've seen them doing it. I work there myself beside it every morning. And that really doesn't give a motorist any chance, as Councillor Taylor said, it's an accident waiting to happen, and I can't understand how it hasn't happened already. Thanks very much. Lee, okay with that? Item 10, correspondence. Seconder. I'd just like to mention the letter as regards the health centre in Tubbercurry. It's lovely to see the progress on that, and it would be nice to see it going to planning by the end of this year. That would be a big step forward with that. So it's nice to see that. Any other business? Councillor Mulvey, I think.
No, Claire, look, thanks. I was just looking for something that was an earlier motion at him, but I'll discuss it with the engineer. I can't just come across the word of it now.
To fix a date for the next meeting, I think it has already been mentioned, the 15th of November, and a time, yeah. It's Monday, I don't know. Does the afternoon suit everybody? 4 o'clock. Let's see. Thanks very much, and thanks to the executive for attending, and thanks to everybody for attending. And our two girls, I hope you learned something from this. Thanks very much.